Welcome to the SinkFunnel assembly guide. This is your SinkFunnel main body. You've got two spacing traps, three different size gaskets, a screwdriver, and two mini screws. First, you're going to grab the gasket that looks like it fits your drain diameter. You're going to put it on from the bottom side of the funnel, wiggle it on until it sits nicely into the gasket channel that is on the main funnel body. Hopefully you can see this. We're just going to wiggle that gasket on until it sits nicely right there. Next step, we're going to grab the spacing trap that has the tightest curvature to it. So these are two different size pieces right here. You're only going to need one of them. First, we're going to try the one with the tight curve. If that doesn't work, we'll try the one with the bigger curve. So you're going to line up the hole with the hole on the body, and you're going to grab one of the screws. You get two screws just in case you lose one. And then you're going to use the provided mini screwdriver to tighten that screw down. It's a self-tapping screw, so it'll take a little bit of force to start it, but then you're going to tighten it down until that trap does not wiggle anymore. So this whole thing should feel like one body, and if you have any wiggle, then you haven't tightened it down properly. All right, once that's all set, we're going to go over to the sink. If you don't have a stopper or a pivot rod, then you can simply drop the sink funnel into the sink and you're ready to go. If your sink funnel is wiggling too much in your drain, you can try out a different size gasket. Then we're going to test for flow rate as well as sending hair down the drain. Depending on your hair type and your water flow rate, you may have to change out the spacing trap for the more shallow 0.325 inch spacing trap. Simply unscrew the existing trap and put the larger one on. The sink funnel can work without any attachments or gaskets, but I do recommend you use one of the provided spacing traps. We're going to show you how to remove your sink pop-up stopper, whether it is a self-contained pop-up mechanism or the older style pivot rod style pop-up. The easiest way to tell what type you have is if you look behind your faucet and there's no pull rod, then you have a self-contained pop-up mechanism that will either pull out or unscrew. This one unscrews, and here's a look at the threads on that thing. Whereas if you have one that just pulls straight out, it's either going to be held in place via O-rings, or in this case, you have little ridges in the plastic that create friction and hold it inside the drain. Now we're going to take a look at the pivot rod style drain. If you look behind your faucet and you have a pull rod, that pull rod is connected to a pivot rod underneath your sink. So you're going to have to open your cabinet, go under your sink, and you're going to loosen the nut that holds that pivot rod in place. That pivot rod pivots to raise and lower the stopper, and you can see it's threaded through a hole at the bottom of your pop-up stopper. So with one hand you're going to hold your stopper, and the other hand you're going to pull out the pivot rod and then pull the stopper out so it doesn't fall into the drain. Then you're going to put the pivot rod back into the drain and screw that nut tight, and then you're going to make sure that pivot rod is centered in the drain before you go and install your sink funnel. If installing a sink funnel in a drain that has a pivot rod, make sure that the pivot rod sits on the side of the funnel that does not have the attachments. Again, the importance of having that pivot rod centered in the drain allows us to easily see if we've installed the sink funnel correctly. If the sink funnel sits flush in the drain, then you've done it right. If it sits skewed, then we're actually sending the hair onto the pivot rod and you'll get a clog. This is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to divert the hair past the pivot rod in the drain, as you can see here.